Gosh, what an absolutely
That's
massive
why we
play to
all
start
want
the
to
game.
Sit
Is he
down.
going to get the
We're
one
the
shot? He
same
gets the
level.
one hit KO!
Hey everybody, welcome to Pokemon Feet, Pokemon facts, Easter eggs, and trivia. I'm going to try to teach you something you don't know about the Pokemon series, but if I fail, whatever. Let's do it. Let's start off this week with a fact that seems to make a lot of sense, but only after you really think about it. As a child, and even in today's games, I was always surprised at winning hundreds of Pokédollars from children I randomly beat around the Pokemon world. Like, why is this little girl giving me $120 for hurting her pet? Well, this astonishing amount of cash stems from the monetary difference between Japanese and American, or wherever you're from, currencies. If you take a look at the Pokédollar sign, you might see a close resemblance to the Japanese sign for yen, which is that country's symbol for its currency. Now, the numbers vary from day to day, but a relatively accurate exchange rate from yen to American dollars is about 100 to 1. So, when a young girl is giving you 120 Pokédollars for beating her, think of it more like she just gave you $1.20, or in other words, probably her weekly allowance. In this vein of thought, Pokeballs really only cost you $2 each, potions cost $3, and you're really only selling those nuggets for $50. What a ripoff. I mentioned last time that we didn't talk a lot about glitches, but we're changing that. In Gold and Silver, there's a dummied out item called Teru-sama that, when traded to Crystal, will become either a GS Ball, which was the event item for Celebi in that game, a blue card, a clear bell, or an egg ticket, depending on the item's index number. The Teru-sama also acts as a Poke-Flute, but it normally has no use option since it's not supposed to really be there. If hacked to be functional, it can be used to wake up Pokemon in and outside of battle. The Poke-Flute theme plays if you use it outside of battle and you have sleeping Pokemon in your party too. Let's talk about some similarities in places you might not think to look. Did you ever realize that a shiny Ampharos shares a similar color scheme with a standard Flaffy? Another cool one is that Roggenrolla's evolutionary line shares many physical characteristics with Beldum's. For all of you competitive battlers out there, you might be familiar with the move Spikes, especially in the singles metagame. Well, the move Spikes, a ground-type hazard move that damages your opponents upon their switching in, cannot be learned by any Pokemon of the ground type. Not even by breeding. Like, what? Inspiration for Pokemon tend to come from all over the place, from famous legends, to plants, to even food and inanimate objects. Well, both Golduck and Lombre are based off of the Japanese mythological creature the Kappa, a supernatural creature in Japanese folklore. The Kappa's actions range from innocent pranks, such as looking up women's kimonos, to much worse things, including drowning people, kidnapping children, and raping women. However, out of the two, Lombre is actually a more accurate representation of the animal. Have fun keeping one of those around in your party. In development, Pokemon's names change all the time. In the Pokemon Red and Blue beta, Cubone was originally known as Orphan, a corruption of the word orphan based on its abandonment at birth. Honestly, this is just one of the saddest little Pokemon ever. Poor guy. Toaded is the rarest of all Pokemon types. In Generation 1, the amount of Dragon-type Pokemon were actually tied with the amount of Ghost types. As most of us probably knew, in Pokemon Red and Blue, Professor Oak was intended to be fought, perhaps even as the final challenge to the game, as evidenced by the fact that his own trainer class existed in the game's data. Interestingly though, data still exists for the Pokemon Professor trainer class in Fire Red and Leaf Green. This implies that the challenge between him and the player was considered yet again but ultimately dropped just like the first time. Sprite fact time. Have you ever noticed that the number of stripes on Electabuzz's tail changes literally all over the place, both on the official artwork and on the sprites of the Pokemon itself in-game? And finally, to finish up this week, let's talk about an interesting switch that was made between the anime and the manga. Remember talking about Ash and Sabrina, and how there was an illogical anime subplot about Ash catching a Haunter in order to beat Sabrina's gym? Well, the relationship these characters have with one another are completely reversed in the manga adaptation of the anime. You probably remember Haunter being a trickster who doesn't take battling seriously, whereas on the other hand, Sabrina is a cold, heartless young girl who traps people in a dollhouse for her own amusement. Well, in the Electric Tale of Pikachu manga, this is so not the case. In fact, there's a subplot based around a Haunter known as the Black Fog, which preys on humans and Pokemon, killing them by stealing their souls with its Dream Eater attack. In fact, in this storyline, the Black Fog had killed Sabrina's Pokemon when she was younger, and has hospitalized Sabrina while Ash was in town. I don't want to spoil anything since the conclusion of their conflict is really interesting, but the dynamic between Sabrina, Ash, and Haunter is totally flipped around in the manga, with Sabrina being portrayed as a caring and gentle person, and Haunter acting as a monstrous murderer from ancient times. It's pretty neat. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you had a good time on this week's episode of Pokemon Feet. If you liked it, feel free to leave me a like or a comment. Both of those are pretty freaking amazing. And if you think you can put up with me again, feel free to maybe even hit that subscribe button. I don't know, up to you, but it'd be pretty cool. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys had a good time, and I hope to see you guys back here next week on another episode of Pokemon Feet.
Who's that Pokemon?
Foot.
Piplup! Piplup!
Foot.